Margaret borrowed this book from the library, The Food Lab. Kenji Lopez-Alt, Better Home Cooking Through Science. We've got really excited by this one kind of redneck thing, being from Missouri and Texas. Ice chest sous vide.
Ha-ha!
Sous vide is French for like under life, under temperature, something like that. Anyway, sous vide cooking is a well-established way to tenderize meat, basically, at, I don't know, 130 degrees or something. By the way, this bathtub drains outside. It looks like we have 120 degrees Fahrenheit out of the tap, which is not quite hot enough. We're aiming for maybe 135 degrees for a starting temperature. I'm going to heat it up. I'm going to aim for about 140 degrees starting temperature. New York strip boneless, I think is best for this method. I'm thinking that leaner cuts, like a round steak, might be even better choice for sous vide, because we may or may not really render the fat out and brown it at the end of this as much as we normally would with the grill. I've got almost 2.5 pounds of boneless beef here. This is a 12 quart or 3 gallon Igloo ice cube. Typical go-to seasoning is some Worcestershire sauce, I don't know, and garlic powder, and maybe a little touch of salt on top of that, and lots of cracked pepper. You know, this is just after rubbing the steaks together for a minute. Okay, I've used these regular old scissors to cut the steaks into half-size, smaller portions. That way they'll go into these bags, 2 pieces each. You can see that there's really no liquid in these bags. I ended up adding about 1 tablespoon of water to these bags to help get more of the air out. You can see there's some irregular shapes. But when I put this in to the 130 degree water, my fingers don't like that temperature too well. Just use the pressure of the water to squeeze out air. And once we get it down submerged enough to really squeeze out the last of the air without bringing water from the ice chest in. So again, I'm just trying to squeeze the air out, or let the water squeeze the air out. I'm going to get the water in the ice chest a little bit hotter, since we're going to want to leave this thing on autopilot for a little while, and since the steaks are going to cool things down a bit, I thought I would start out more like 135 or even 140. Another 6 cups, quart and a half of water to almost boiling. I'm going to put it all in. What the heck. This is hillbilly stuff. We don't have time to mess around. We're pushing 140, which is about as hot as you want to go with this sort of thing. Well, they'll kind of sink themselves. Mr. Lopez-Alt recommends at least 2 gallons. We have 3 gallons. I'll go ahead and move them around so that they're not stacked. Now we have a single layer of meat with water that can circulate pretty much on all sides, around 135 degrees, which was the recommended start temperature.
When are you going to check it again?
So the author of this book says every 30 minutes you could check it, or maybe less often for a really good ice chest, and then you're supposed to be ready to top it off with a little hot water, or I guess you have to replace a little bit of the water. You can remove water from the ice chest, put it in here, and then you know you won't overflow when you put it back. The reason we're doing this is to tenderize the meat where it has a little bit of that good rare taste, not such a high temperature that it loses some of that beefy flavor. And at the end of this, we will sear the outside of the meat, possibly with a blowtorch. We might wait an hour because we started out pretty hot, and I'm going to go do some other things. This method is not considered safe for reheating the food from this low temperature after storage. It's It's meant to be eaten pretty much fresh. We're going to probably eat this tonight and tomorrow, but you probably wouldn't want to hold it for days and days after using this method. Okay. It has now been 1 hour. Let's check the temperature. Going to hit about 130 still. This ice chest only lost 5 degrees, so it's been 5 hours since we started this thing, and ooh, it's still pretty hot. 2 cups of boiling water after the second hour, and the third hour again about that, to bump it up about 5 degrees each time. And right now we're still over 120, maybe about 125 degrees right now. We're going to take these out now to the grill in the dark. We've got the grill good and hot. I'm going to go ahead and fling some rosemary from the garden, maybe 1 minute on each side. So we're trying to just sear and flavor a bit, just get a little browning action. So let's close it to get the smoke to penetrate. You might end up with well done, dried out stuff.
3 minutes. Don't go any longer.
We've got some rosemary potatoes, some nice salad that Margaret made from homegrown yard greens, and the steaks, as you can see, the fat is still harder, not rendered out quite as much. The cookbook, the food lab said only about 30 seconds on the side with a sear. It's a nice kind of a medium or medium rare look to it. And was it pretty tender?
Yes.
Okay.
Cut very easily.
What does it taste like? Uh-oh, it's super chewy.
No, it tastes good. It's tender. A little less warm than I thought it would be.
There was still some toughness. There's some sinew along this fat rind. It has a much stronger garlic taste than it would have. In other words, being in the bag, instead of burning the garlic off in the long grilling process, I probably didn't need as much garlic as normal. The outside, even though it's brown, is not as dry. The grill flavor is there, and the rosemary smoke flavor is actually there pretty strongly too in this piece. We actually had flaming rosemary underneath these things, so that was pretty intense.